Conventions of a good Readme file, lessons from a new joinee's experience. As a new employee at a tech company, I was enthusiastic about diving into my first project. However, my excitement quickly turned into frustration when I encountered a repository that hadn't been touched in several years. To make matters worse, this repository was devoid of a Readme file. What should have been a simple task turned into a full day's worth of struggle just to resolve dependencies and get the project up and running. Here's what I learned about the importance of a well-structured Readme file and the conventions that can make it effective. The importance of a Readme file. A Readme file serves as the front door to your project. It introduces newcomers, and even returning developers, to the repository, providing essential information that can make onboarding smoother. When I found myself sifting through the code, struggling to understand how to install dependencies, run the project, or navigate the architecture, I realized just how crucial a good Readme could be. How I spent a day in frustration. My journey began by cloning the repository, excited to see what it would bring to my work. However, I quickly discovered a lack of information that would have streamlined my learning curve. Here's a breakdown of the challenges I faced. Without proper instructions about the env files and other settings files, I spent hours figuring out which files were necessary to build and run the project. I had to manually inspect and trace back the imports to figure them out. I tried several methods to install the project but had no guidance on how to set it up properly. I wasted precious time running commands that weren't applicable due to the absence of clear setup instructions. I faced further confusion regarding which node version to use. The repository contained numerous files and folders. Without any documentation, I had to dig through the code to understand its architecture and functionality, which was time-consuming and inefficient. A good Readme file should clearly explain the project, provide setup instructions, highlight usage examples, and offer contribution guidelines to help users and developers understand the project quickly. Having navigated this experience, I now appreciate the specific conventions that contribute to a clear, informative, and helpful Readme file. Here are some key components that should be included. 1. Project title and description. Start with a concise title, followed by a brief description of what the project does and its purpose. This allows anyone visiting the repository to quickly understand the project's relevance. 2. Table of contents. For larger projects, a table of contents can be invaluable. It helps users navigate to specific sections easily, especially when they're looking for particular details. 3. Installation instructions. Include a step-by-step guide on how to install the project. Specify any prerequisites or dependencies that need to be installed beforehand, and provide clear commands to facilitate a smooth setup process. 4. Usage guidelines. Once the installation is complete, provide instructions on how to run the project. Include command line instructions, configuration options, and examples of usage to help users get started quickly. 5. Contributing guidelines. If the project is open for contributions, outline the process. Include any code guidelines, pull request processes, and the project's overall contribution philosophy. 6. License information. Make sure to specify the licensing for the project. This clarifies how others can use, modify, or distribute the code. 7. Contact information. Provide information on how to reach the maintainers or contributors. This could be an email address, link to a profile, or a Slack channel where questions can be directed. 8. FAQs and troubleshooting. Anticipate common questions or issues that users may face and offer solutions. This not only saves time for the user but also minimizes the need for repetitive queries. Conclusion. My experience with the neglect of a Readme file in a long-forgotten repository was a valuable lesson in the importance of documentation. A good Readme file acts as a guide, helping new developers, like me, navigate the complexities of a project with ease. By adhering to established conventions, software developers can save countless hours of frustration and create a welcoming environment for contributors. In today's collaborative tech landscape, a well-structured README is not just a nice-to-have, it's an essential component of any repository. Let's commit to ensuring that our projects are equipped with detailed and accessible documentation from the start. Conventions of a good README file. Your README file should be as good as your project itself. Make your project stand out and look professional by at least including the following elements in your README. Project title, the name of your project. Description, this is an extremely important component of the README. You should describe the main purpose of your project. Answer questions like, why did you build this project, and what problems does it solve? It also helps to include your motivations for the project and what you learned from it. Features, if your project has multiple features, list them here. Don't be afraid to brag if your project has unique features that make it stand out. You can even add screenshots and GIFs to show off the features. How to use, here, you should write step-by-step instructions on how to install and use your project. Any software or package requirements should also be listed here. Technologies, list all the technologies and/or frameworks you used and what purpose they serve in your project. Collaborators, if others have contributed to your project in any way, it is important to give them credit for their work. Write your team members or collaborators' names here along with a link to their GitHub profile. License, it's also important to list a license on your README so other developers can understand what they can and cannot do with your project. You can use this guide, https://choosealicense.com, to help you choose a license. Keep READMEs brief but detailed. README should always be up-to-date and self-explanatory. If you have spent a lot of time on your project, you should also spend a good chunk of time on the README. It can help your future self as well when you step away for a while and need to get reacquainted with your project. Not to mention it'll leave a positive impression on future interviewers who look at your GitHub profile. GitHub will find the headers and include them in a table of contents based on the header hierarchy. Level up READMEs with media. Documentation doesn't have to be boring. Go for images or videos to make a project more understandable and appealing. We can add the project's logo, diagrams, screenshots, or even GIFs. For Markdown files living in a repository, the path to the image can either be to an URL or to an image file in the repository. Conclusion. Write engaging READMEs. Make sure they include easy-to-follow details for your project. This improves your documentation skills and makes you a better developer and communicator of code.